Welcome everyone to today's COVID-19 virtual event. We are very excited to have Dr. Ted C. Jones, Chief Economist for Stewart Title with us today. Ted, as you know, we always sell out whenever you come and speak for us, and today was no different. We had a packed house, so that's why we are also streaming this to Facebook right now. So if you are watching and you have questions or comments, Ted is going to go through his entire presentation first, and then we will take questions and comments and things at the end, but you can type them in. As you're typing them in on Zoom, be aware you can make your comment available to only panelists, so just Ted and I, or to panelists and all attendees. So make sure you're selecting the correct audience depending on who you want to see that message. And then we do have some HAR staff that are monitoring the Facebook comments as well. So if you have questions there, we will definitely get to those questions. So without further ado, Ted, take it away for us.
Well, thanks, Christina. It's an honor to be here today talking to fellow realtors, so to speak. I got to tell y'all, every year, October, I have to come up with a new speech topic for the next year. So last October, I picked this speech topic called The Beat Goes On. And you talk about being fortuitous. It was, because I was thinking, you know, that great song by Sonny and Cher in 1967, you're right, it's going to talk about change. And I thought, well, it's election year, what a good time to talk about change. It talks about what stays the same, what changes, and what's to come. Who knew this coronavirus is a what's to come thing? But indeed it was with that. Now you talk about this stuff. We're all doing social distancing. I'm actually in my office. Have been every day, working day but one since mid-March. Don't worry about social distancing. We have 15,000 square feet on this floor. There are 4 of us here, 15,000. We've got the CEO in one room, the CIO in another, the head of HR, and myself. So I think we're going good. But I love this social distancing in Australia, 1 adult kangaroo. I'm kind of curious, in Louisiana, is that 1 gator? Florida, I don't know. Oh, and this one. Of course, you got to love people in Austin, Texas. Need to practice some social distancing from the fridge.
Ted, really quick, sorry to interrupt, but a few people are having trouble hearing you. So your microphone just sounds a little muffled.
Well, it's the one I've used on 100 of these. Do you hear me muffled?
I hear
Christina?
you. I hear you. Yeah.
Is it muffled or is it okay?
Just a little muffled. Yes. Yes.
I'm not using the computer. I'm actually using a super high quality speaker. So.
Okay.
Sorry. I apologize.
Everybody just listen really, really well. And somebody just said, I can hear just fine. So I think we're good.
All right. Social distancing, this one from CVS, please distance yourselves at least 6 feet apart or the average length of CVS receipt. Again, when we get in these tough times, we resort to humor, and I think that's great. I love this one, and I have a lot of friends that are homeschooling right now with their children. When my son failed a math test before March 1, I asked him, did you not study? Are you not paying attention in class? Do you need a tutor? And now, when a kid fails a test, he says, well, buddy, we did our best. And there's a lot of that going on. Oh, and we're looking at a whole new series of creation. I don't know how many of y'all have been creating with boxes from Amazon Prime and everything else like that. And creativity doesn't end here. This is one of the best. I'm not a golfer, but I'm kind of curious how many times it took to hit that chip shot, so to speak, in there. Plus, we all know that most of us hadn't owned a computer that had a CD or DVD drive in a long, long time. Even better is this one. And you cannot look at a Zoom video without appreciating what's going on here. So you got this, well, y'all just take a look at it. Y'all get the whole deal, and then you get it. And yeah, okay. We're on the bet. You'll never look at a Zoom meeting the same again with anyone drinking. Come on, Christina, show us. There you go. There you go. Yep. All right. Each year, end of January, beginning of February, I spend a week in Alaska giving speeches just like this, but in person. And it's during the ceremonial start of the Iditarod sled dog race in Anchorage. It's during fur rendezvous. That's when all the trappers bring in their pelts and their hides from the bush at a great big auction. They have an outside carnival, kind of like the livestock show, but roller coasters. And you got to see kids on a roller coaster at 20 below zero outside, just having a ball of their lives. And they have this ice sculpting contest. And a couple of years ago, when I took this picture, I said, I'm going to wait for that next presidential election year and the beat goes on. So here we go, and we're going to talk about it. Sonny and Cher. And you talk about great sayings from this hit in 1967. Great words. I don't mean la-di-da-di-da, la-di-da-di-dee. I mean this. Charleston was once the rage. You know, we still dance. We just don't Charleston. I want to talk about MLS. I can remember when I had my appraisal company. I grew up in Montrose, Colorado, in the mountains of Sheep Ranch, southwestern Colorado. We had one TV station, one radio station. I can remember in the 1970s, the MLS published a paper booklet once a month. On Fridays, you got the updated addenda page or pages, if there were two, and any new listings, any expired listings, any, change listings, pending contracts, all that kind of stuff. Aren't you glad? Well, just look at the technology, and aren't we beneficial to be members of the Houston Association of Realtors? Y'all remember the fight that HAR had to go through to put a public-facing web page so that consumers could do that. Notice y'all still sell real estate, and just differently. Thank heavens we're not using paper booklets. History's turned the page. Things change every day. Millennials. Did you realize, well, first of all, millennials for 6 consecutive years have been the #1 home buying group in the United States of America. That's number one. But second, do you realize the oldest millennials this year turned 40? We can all say that you can beg off not being an adult when you're in your 30s, but when it's 40, it is all over, folks. I will tell you that up front. I'm not worried about millennials or Gen Z. Mini skirts, the current thing. Well, remember that was 1967 on The Beat Goes On. I'm 65. I hope I live long enough that mini skirts make a comeback. And lastly, TV boppers, our newborn king. We got our millennials and Gen Z on this one. Ugly five, #1, folks. New this morning, weekly unemployment claims. Now, that's the number of people in the last 7 days who applied for unemployment benefits. Before all this started, the all-time record, 695,000 over 7 days, right at 100,000 a day, October 1982. And then came the week of March 25th, 3.3 million, almost 5 times the prior record. We doubled that, 6,000,524,438. I just want to go over these numbers, guys. We are currently at a 22% unemployment rate. You and I have never been at a 22% unemployment rate in our lifetimes. That's more than 1 out of every 5 people that are active in the workforce, and it's going to get worse. I don't know how to tell you this, but just look at this one. How bad is it going to get, and how long? Those are the questions we have to look at right now. Well, first of all, a recession is defined as 2 or more consecutive quarters of negative GDP. We didn't start one last year, didn't have one last year. Now, I'm going to use Goldman Sachs up front on this one. I like Goldman's numbers. Why? Because when they get new information, they change their forecast. And we have to be nimble today because every day we get new information that changes our perception on this. So here's what Goldman's forecasting. They said that in the first quarter, January, February, March, the total value of all the goods and services the United States produced was down 9%. Now, that's huge. Y'all have to realize that 2 or 3% drop is pretty massive. That's 9%. And also realize that we had an incredible January and February. And that means March was horrible. And it was horrible. And only the last half of March was really horrible. They're forecasting we go down 34% in this second quarter. That's April, May, June. We have never had a 34% reduction in GDP in the history of the United States of America. So largest decline we're looking at this quarter in all time. Now, I appreciate that. But here's a phenomenal thing that Goldman Sachs is forecasting right now. They say that the recession is over in Q3 of this year. That starts in July, folks. In fact, they're looking at a 19% gain. Now, notice if you're down 9 and then 34, 19% doesn't get you back to where you were, but at least it's heading the right direction. And then year in, they're looking at a minus 6.2%. My numbers say between minus 10 or minus 14%. Either way, I think any of us will take that right now. I will say this, and I've been saying this since March 11th, and I think it's going to come true. We will not be through this come 4th of July, but we'll be sitting on our balconies on the beach, in the condo, in the backyard of the ranch, having a cold one or 3 or 4, feel a lot better about this. Mobility is I'm actually going to be traveling this next Monday up to Dallas. How about that? Back on the road again. And it's good to open back up, but we will not be back there. I'll also tell you this. One of the numbers about Houston, they say that 1 out of 5 restaurants will never open again that are closed right now. That's amazing. You're going to see some of your competitors go out of business or merge with others. We're going to see just not restaurants. We're going to see failures in a large amount of businesses. On the other hand, we will come around and recover on this one. Now, good news is, in the first quarter, these numbers came out yesterday. Even though Goldman said we would be down 9%, the first preliminary estimate from the U.S. Department of Economic Development, Bureau of Economic Development says we were down 4.8%. So right now, it looks to be a little over half as bad as we thought it was going to be. At least Goldman thought it was going to be literally just 2 weeks ago. That's good news, folks. Now, also, well, bad news. Can't have all good news. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis says, and remember, we're at 22% unemployment right now. They said by the end of Q2, we will average 32% unemployment. That's 1 out of 3 people unemployed. That's 47 million. We currently have 36 million unemployed. So that's another 11 million Americans are going to lose their jobs. Now, have we ever seen anything like this, not in the U.S., but any other cities? Yeah, it's pretty much what we saw in New Orleans under Katrina. And I want to tell y'all, there's good news here because this is not anything like Katrina, thank heavens. How can I say that? Well, first of all, there was no managers to get New Orleans back online. You had a bunch of politicians pointing fingers at each other and nobody doing anything. I want you all to remember that, well, first of all, look at it. Within 2 months, we lost 1 out of 3 jobs in New Orleans. We never have gained all those jobs back. But remember that we didn't even pump out some neighborhoods in New Orleans for 8 or 9 months. They were up to 10 feet underwater for 8 or 9 months. There was no one. I think what is different in the United States on this hurricane of a disaster is that you have probably the 2 best key people in history running our recovery. That happens to be Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, and Powell, Chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, let me tell you what I like about these 2 individuals. First of all, they're business people. This is a business right now. And as business people, they know that the second a business runs out of cash flow or available credit, game over. And they know that we have to keep liquidity pumped into this economy and system. And let me tell you the good news on this. So Powell, in the first 30 days of this downturn, provided more liquidity to the U.S. economy than the entire presidential administration and the Federal Reserve in 2009 for the entire year. You have to understand that these people understand you got to keep money in people's pockets, hence the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. All these things are important, folks. Now, it's not going to work for everyone. You're going to have some people not get their checks and some businesses won't qualify. If we can keep 80 or 90%, we're not going to have a Katrina repeat. Second thing I like about these 2 people, of course, Mnuchin being the manager from Wall Street that used to manage billions of dollars, neither of them are full-time government employees. I'm not taking a shot at government employees, but it's a different philosophy when you're growing and expanding a business as to showing up and doing your job. That's a big difference. And lastly, what I love about these 2 is neither of them are economists, nor are they academics. Never been academic. Why is that important? These are business people who understand when things change, you got to respond quickly. That's good news. So I'm a commercial appraiser by trade. I want you all to look at what I call my 3 comparable sales for this pandemic. Guys, think about it. We had 2 pandemics since 2000. We had SARS, H1N1, swine flu. Then we had the seismic event 9/11. So first of all, let me put this in perspective. We're going to look at 6 variables, like conventional mortgage rates and housing sales and what have you. We're going to look at these 3 events. We're going to look at annualized data. Why annualized data? Well, we all know we live in Houston. Hurricane comes in, you lose tens of thousands, 60,000, 70,000 jobs. We also know within 6 months you got a lot more jobs because the recovery is taking place. I think we're going to see that here too. Not that we'll have more, but we're going to have recovery somewhat. So what we want to look at is what happens in the year before and the year after these events. And lastly, I want to point out, we were already in a recession in 2001 before 9/11 happened. And we were in the mother of all recessions, at least until now, in 2008 and the first half of 2009. And that recession was caused by real estate because we built too much housing and we built too much commercial real estate. So look what happened through 9/11. Well, by the way, let me do this. One other segue here. 9/11 to me was, at least until now, the most impressionable economic event in my lifetime. I didn't think it would be a decade until we recovered. And yet 6 months later, other than having to go through all the security at the airport, we were doing pretty good, guys. And then that's what we're talking about here. But anyway, through 9/11, rates continue to drop. Well, we were in a recession. I don't think 9/11 had any impact on those rates. SARS, well, even though SARS is a global pandemic, it was minuscule compared to what we're going through right now. I don't think SARS caused interest rates to stabilize from 03 to 04. Rates were already plummeting in 08, that continued on down in 09 and 10. Swine flu or H1N1 had no impact. Home sales, y'all ought to be interested in this one. Home sales continued to go up through 2001, 9/11, continued to go up through 03. Now, home sales plunged in 08 nationwide. That's the recession that was caused by too much housing. One of my fellow economists, not a real estate economist, said, well, look, you get a house bounce there. I said, no, it's a dead cat bounce in 09. Now, we all have to admit, and you're going to see this, just like we did under 9/11, when you've been at home for long periods of time like this, you all of a sudden realize I need to either own my own home or own a different home if I'm spending that much time here. It becomes that much more important to us. In fact, one of my tweets this past week looked at this huge demand, growing demand right now for new available vacant homes, new homes. They're clean, they're safe, and never lived in. It's all buzzwords, particularly for people who are living in high density living as we speak today. And we're going to see a lot more home sales, pin up demand come out of this because all of a sudden the home is that much more valuable. Look at median price. Guys, median prices peaked in 06 at roughly $225,000. Prices went up through 9/11, that recession they went up through. Remember that. They went up through SARS. They were going down because of the 08 recession. We briefly stabilized in 09. We stabilized because all the foreclosures we did in 08, we sold in 09. Those homes have been purchased around $225,000, and they were paying $175,000 for them. In fact, out of that, we created a whole new class of investment properties, single-family rentals. Again, home sales performed very well. Now, I want you to look at this one. This is unemployment. I already told you that, we're sitting there at a 22% rate today, heading to 32% according to the Atlanta Fed. Guys, we peaked, but not even at 10% on an annualized basis in 2010. Commercial real estate, real quick, for those of you that are commercial, sales went up through 9/11 and SARS. Sales in commercial real estate plummeted in 08. Why? Because there was no financing. Not only could you not borrow money to purchase a commercial property in 2008, guys, you couldn't do that. You couldn't even borrow it. You couldn't borrow money to refinance a commercial loan that was coming due. And here lies the difference. I've talked to two local commercial entities, both do business nationwide, and I asked them specifically, tell me about how your business on commercial lending is going today. What's different from 2 months ago? And here's the answer from both of them. First difference is interest rates are lower today than 2 months ago. You still making commercial loans? Yes, with the caveat, they're not loading at all on any leisure and hospitality properties. Hotels are out, restaurants, bars are out, resorts out. Think about that. Think about all the people that you know that are in business doing that. I think about, to me, one of the most phenomenal business people I've ever met in my entire life, Tillman Fertitta. And you just described his business, his book of business. If there's ever a survivor, though, I know that Mr. Fertitta is coming back hard. But I say this, if you truly value your local favorite restaurant, you better go by there tonight on the way home and do takeout, because those type of businesses, local mom and pops or what have you, local hole in the walls, they live on a day-to-day cash flow. Thank heavens we're opening up this state this next week. Get out and about and go with it. And lastly, on commercial real estate, cap rates. Higher cap rates indicate that we have greater risk overall. Cap rates went down through 9/11, down through SARS. They rose in 09, 08, 9, only because of the recession. So why did I talk about this? Because y'all forgot about swine flu, which I just went through 6 economic factors. Let me remind you of swine flu. You may not have known this, but in 2009, 60.8 million Americans contracted swine flu. 274,000 were hospitalized. Unfortunately, 12,500 perished. Now, I'm not going to tell you swine flu is anything like coronavirus. It's not, but they're both viruses to a point. We know that corona hasn't run its course. Swine flu did. We know we have vaccines for swine flu today. We don't yet for corona. But wait and look at these things. And by the way, when you look at these numbers on coronavirus, a little bit of inside close to home, I've had both a granddaughter and a son-in-law who had coronavirus. Granddaughter recovered rather quickly. Son-in-law took me about a month. Went back to work a week ago Monday. So, but look at this. And let's just round up. These are as of this morning. But if you want to see instances in each country, just click the link below. Let's just round up. 3.3 million people globally have had coronavirus. Whoa, whoa. We all know that's an understatement. Dramatic. Why? 2 counts. Number one, so many millions have had it, and they didn't even get sick enough to know they had it. So it's massively underreported number. And secondly, we know China lies. Think about this. China, where the virus started, China had, well, their report they've only had 83,000 cases of coronavirus. Bull. When we moved to Houston, my daughter and wife went to the town in College Station, and they picked up a little puppy, guard dog, so to speak, for outside in Houston. And he was 6 weeks old then. And Scruffy was the lionest dog the world has ever seen. When I say lion, I'm an early morning person at 4 o'clock typically every morning starting to work. When I'd get up at 4 o'clock, Scruffy would just raise a fit until I fed him. He'd shut up. And I know the second I went to work, he would convince my wife that he hadn't been fed, and she would feed him. And then the daughters, they got up and do the same thing. I think that dog some days had 5 or 6 meals. They only needed 2. Lion, Scruffy dog, and that's exactly what China is. We know they had more than 83,000 cases. Huh. Well, let's say it was not a lie by 100% or 200%. Let's say they lied by a factor of 1,000% or tenfold. Well, instead of 83,000, that means there's 830,000, and herein lies some good news. Why would I say if it's 830,000, it's good news? Because China has 1.4 billion people. Where they live is close proximity, folks. That's great news. That's 6 or 7 tenths of 1%. And, well, even one of the other things that kind of supports this thing, when you click that link down below, you're going to see just not countries that have this. You're going to see the Princess Diamond cruise ship. And I want to take you back to that. It was one of the first cruise ships that had been out in the ocean for multiple weeks. It came into Japan, and they had to quarantine there. And they had 3,700 crew and passengers. When it was all said and done, 712 of the 3,700 came down with coronavirus, and 13 passed away. Guys, I can't imagine only 700 to 3,700 the cruise ship after a month would only have it. There's hope here, folks. There's hope. Now, not segue, not anything else, not belittling fatalities. You have to keep in mind that we lost 61,000 Americans in the flu season of fall of 2017 to spring of 2018. 61,000. We're on track right now, they say, for 74,000 fatalities this year. One is too many, we know that. The good news, before this downturn, we were in fiscal, F-I-C-A-L, economic fitness. And you and I live in Texas. 4th best job growth state in the country. Now, I do have to add this one. We all have this persona, we're Texans and what have you, and yeah, we are, thank heavens, but we're kind of incorrect when we assume we're the best place in the country to do business, because we're not. Each year, the Tax Foundation does a great big study. They look at 5 taxes: corporate income tax, personal income tax, retail sales tax, unemployment tax, property tax. There are 12 states better than us. And the 2 ugly ones, we all know property tax. We need to do something about property tax without question. The other one that's questionable, we have this franchise tax. While corporations only pay income tax when they make money, you have to pay the franchise tax even when you lose money, and corporate America doesn't like that. We need to do something about that. States rank 1, 2, and 3 in this really don't impact us at all. Wyoming, South Dakota, and Alaska. Florida, biggest competitor, 4th best place in the country to do business. So we come into, you can see the few jobs that we noted. How come we only lost so few jobs in Houston? Look at that top right-hand corner in last month, in March. Well, this is what they call the Payroll Survey. And what they do is they look at, well, I do it nationwide. They do 145,000 businesses and government agencies each month. And they say to them, send us the following information: how many people you've employed, how many people you've hired this month and fired, how many people work part-time, what their average hourly income is, and oh, by the way, report that for your payroll that includes the 12th of the month. So this was March in the first half for most people reporting companies, which means we missed all those layoffs, what have you, in the second part of March. Now, I'm going to rate us on a few things here. I'm going to rate us on good, bad, or ugly on what kind of jobs we have and what's going to happen in the next year or two or three. Look at the bottom, for example, in the middle. The U.S. has 15.3% of all jobs as government jobs. I rate that very good. You want more government jobs you can ever imagine. Why? Because we don't lay off government workers. We only have 13.4%, so we have fewer protected workers, so to speak. I'm giving us a thumbs up on leisure and hospitality, ground zero as far as that goes. We're exactly what the U.S. is. Go to Orlando, Florida. Instead of 1 out of 10 workers in the U.S. or even Houston being in leisure and hospitality, it's 2 out of 10 in Orlando. Tough. Education and health services. This is going to surprise y'all. You thought with the medical center here and what have you, that we would be greater than the U.S. We're not. We're actually less. We're 13% versus 16%. We get a thumbs up on professional and business services. That's everything from real estate professionals that are not in finance and even attorneys. I'm giving us kind of a pink, not bad, but not horrible on manufacturing. I think what's going to come out of this in the next 3 years is going to have a massive gain in employment in the United States. First of all, it's going to bring a lot more manufacturing back to the country. And secondly, cheap energy is going to drive that to get here. Construction, oh my goodness, almost doubled, yes. We're going to finish up jobs underway. We're just not going to start new ones, folks. It'll be a while, a year or two before that happens. And then oil and gas. It's called mining and logging, in which oil and gas is a sector. In Houston, Texas, it's oil and gas. We had 5 times the percent of the workforce in that. For those of y'all that have a hard time sleeping at night, I've included the same analysis basically for the last 5 years, last 12 months. All right. Can't get out of this discussion without talking oil before we even get into housing sales. I want you to notice that in almost every one of these recessions, yellow bars, except for the first one on the left, during a recession, oil prices go down. Now, we've never, yeah, we have seen them go down. Look at 08, 9, 10. We saw oil prices actually plummet more than they are today, but not as low as they are today. Take a look at that. The recession of 73, 74, 75 was caused by high oil prices. And one time that oil prices went up through recession. Now, assuming you're not in Houston or Texas, assuming you're not in an oil producing region like Western North Dakota, this benefits us. It benefits the United States. We could say that, well, a tax cut doesn't benefit everyone. Because why doesn't a tax cut benefit everyone? Because half the people pay no federal income taxes whatsoever. So half of them wouldn't even benefit at all from it. But when oil prices get cheap, when energy prices get cheap, 99.5% of Americans are better off because their income isn't predicated or determined by oil prices. So I want you to look at this. This is what happened in the past. Now, this is the total number of mining and logging jobs, which is predominantly oil and gas here. You can see we already recovered a bunch, but remember in 2014, the oil prices were in the $100 range, and you'll see that in a few minutes. And all of a sudden, they became in the 80s, and so we shed off, well, from 110,000 to, let's spread it off to 80,000, dropped 30,000 workers. Today, we're at 76,000. And how do you drop enough workers? Now, what happened in the past, and let's go back to 2014, we thought we had to have $60 or $70 a barrel oil just to break even. And then what our oil and gas companies did is they changed the way they do business, and all of a sudden they started making money at $40 or $50 a barrel. Well, it's going to be difficult. Oil, just a second ago, I looked up at CNBC a second ago, trading at $17.50 a barrel. I don't know that you can conceivably produce oil even at break even at that price in Texas. So you're going to see continued hemorrhaging in jobs in oil and gas in Houston, Texas. Now, there's our crude prices. Just these are monthly averages, and that last number is not correct because what we've just seen. So ugly. Now, let's talk about how quick these layoffs happen. And these are oil and gas extraction jobs, and these jobs are not in Houston, Texas. These are jobs you see out in Midland, Odessa, and Eagle Ford Shale, out in the western North Dakota, what have you. These are those kind of jobs. We've learned in this, those gray bar in the background, that's oil prices. That maroon line, yes, I'm an Aggie, that maroon line is total number of employment in oil and gas extraction jobs in the United States of America. And when oil prices go down on extraction jobs, we run for another 2 years before we start shutting people off. What it is, if we're producing that field and we have loans to it, it's cash flowing, we'll go ahead and drill it out and just complete that project. That's exactly what that is. Here's the ugly slide, and this is Houston, Texas. These data aren't Houston, but again, oil prices and employment in oil and gas support jobs. That's everything from the CEO to the janitor at oil companies and their headquarters and their buildings here in Houston, Texas. And you can see, for example, when oil got cheap in 2016, within 6 months we shed off all those jobs. This is ongoing as we see it today, folks. You're going to see a massive amount of mergers in the oil and gas business and bankruptcies. I'll put it up front. And some of these bankruptcies aren't going to come out the other side. So if you were living as a realtor on oil and gas field people, understand, folks, that game is over. Now, residential rates, we talk about cheap energy. Residential rates is the other one that's going to help benefit us. As you can see, we're having the cheapest interest rates in history. In fact, this morning, Freddie Mac announced the lowest 30-year rates in the history of the United States, 3.23%. Now, my dissertation, I got my PhD in finance back in the early 80s, was on residential mortgage rates, differences across the U.S. We are so fortunate we live in Texas, which has among the lowest rates in the country. We still do. Just 10 days ago, when I was speaking to our Texas agents at Stewart Title throughout the state, our statewide underwriter that lived in San Antonio getting ready to retire, he just refinanced his house at 2.75%. And the lady taking over his job just did the same thing at 2.75%. I'm willing to bet today you would get pretty close to 2.6% on a 30-year fixed rate loan. And I'm going to tell you all, realtors, if you want a neat follow-up tool with anyone you sold a home to ever, think about this ever, because lowest rates in history, tell them to refinance or at least take a look at refinancing. Now, it's not over yet. That maroon line going down, first of all, the bar is going up and down, back down. That's total residential lending. We're going to go up this year because we're going to do all this refi because of cheap rates. It's not home purchases. I don't know how to tell you that. But look what rates are going to do. Go down through this year and even down next year. That is going to help fuel some of the recovery in the home sales we're losing this year. Now, we are borrowing money. Just look at the middle line, but 1.24%. The president said we're borrowing money for free. He's correct. We're borrowing money for free because when we borrow money, we sell a 30-year treasury. We're currently paying holders of those instruments 1.24% per year. Inflation is between 1.5% and 1.8%. We're actually paying back fewer dollars than we borrowed after inflation. We're getting it for free. That's good news. Now, U.S. home sales, the problem is this is all historical. Nobody cares. I mean, this is all historical, folks. You need to understand that. It's one of those crazy things. Here's home sales forecast. And by the way, I'm going to tell you how wrong this is going to be in a minute. Fannie Mae shows, these are existing home sales. Fannie says that existing home sales will be down 15% this year. The mortgage bankers say they'll be down 1.9%. I think Fannie's more correct, and they may not be low enough right now. I'll show you why in just a second. Next year, though, realtors stick with me. We're going to be down 15% from 2019, and next year will be up 15%. So if you stick out the next 21 months, you will have gotten all the home sales you should have this year and next year combined. Low rates, pent-up demand for housing are going to help us out. Here's why I think they're a little bit wrong on how bad home sales are. Now, Stewart, we're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We just did our first quarter earnings release last week. We don't talk about outside of the first quarter. We don't tell what's going on right now. Two of our competitors did, and their home purchase order counts, one of them said they were down 43% in April, first 3 weeks, and the other one said 47%. You know what? If orders going into a title insurance company nationwide are down an average of 45%, those orders in the next 30 to 60 days become closings. That is what Q2 is going to look like, folks, unfortunately. Now, so let's look at it on a quarterly basis. Again, this is Fannie and Freddie, and I'm going to stick with Fannie Mae because I think, excuse me, this is MBA and Fannie Mae, excuse me, not Freddie. They're looking us down 29 to 20. Oh, let's just do this. Second and third quarters down mid 20%, 30%. Next year, second and third quarter up 30 to 40%. So if you want to make your money that you lost this year, stick around till next year. That's what it all says here. I do want to show this real quick when you take a look at those things. Here's what median price is going to do. Now, this is nationwide, so I'm going to put a caveat. And again, I'm going to stick with Fannie Mae. They're showing just a little, still price gain this year and next year, not pretty minimal. If you believe in MBA, you know, wishing doesn't cause things to happen, but you can do that. You can see no one's really looking at really good increases in home values, and I think that's realistic. Now, I'm going to show you this slide number one for Houston. And this has nothing to do with the coronavirus. It had everything to do through year-end last year. We have overbuilt Houston's housing market. When I say housing, I'm talking everything combined total. Apartments, duplexes, condos, townhouses, single families, mansions, whores. This is just the total number of new dwelling units that we built each year. One apartment, one house, one mansion, one condo, whatever. And the number of jobs. We created 400,300 net new jobs in the last 12 months. We issued permits almost 380,000. We only have one new job per new dwelling unit. I think you have to have 1.25 to 1.5 new jobs per dwelling unit. Guys, bottom line is we overbuilt. And this is before this downturn. I live in a little gated community. Not a little gated community. A lot of expats, a lot of oil gas execs, that type of thing, that live in the little community. Not big execs, but yeah, middle class execs. And it used to be that when a house came on sale, and there's usually just one at any point in time out of 140 homes roughly, that they wouldn't even list it. They would just put it in the local rag, the little newsletter that came out once a month in the neighborhood, saying hey, the people at such and such are thinking about selling their home, and there are enough people in the neighborhood by word of mouth, 3 or 4 people say their friends or relatives, whatever, I'd love to buy your property. Guys, before we entered this downturn, before March, we had 4 listings for sale in my neighborhood, and some of them since last October. Now, I want to say this up front. If you had a listing below 800,000 since last October, you haven't had an offer on, it's overpriced. It's overpriced because we'll know. I will tell you this, I don't think the realtor has ever had a time to have a higher value add in the real estate transaction process than right now, because your local knowledge, and not just value of price, but value in what stays, who pays what repairs, what personal property stays, and what have you, that's all time important. But we overbuilt this market. So as long as we understand that up front. Now, here's our home sales. And notice, our home sales, we just set an all-time record at the end of March. That black line is prior 12 months. Not only did we sell more homes in March than any time in history, in any March that is, in the last 12 months, we sold more homes in a 12-month period than any time in history. All right. Just got these off this morning. I just wanted to look at these single-family listings. And we know that we still have the rest of the day to go that these get counted in here. Unlike sales, when everyone gets a listing, they make sure it's listed on the day that's listed. Our new listings, and again, this is just single family, and it's in Galveston, Fort Bend, Harris, and Montgomery counties. Our listings are down 33%. It's going to be hard for sales to go up if you don't have anything to sell. Bottom line, period. It is what it is. Sales, and again, we know our sales for this April are undercounted because this is the last day of the month, and you still got 10 days after this, or whatever it is, to get them back in. Folks, 35% of sales, and those sales, these are closings. Those sales are fallouts. And think about this. This really didn't start until after March the 1st. And that's why I'm thinking, I think we're going to be down 35 to 40% in sales in Q2. Up front, tell you that up front. I also think you have to be brutally honest to any seller on the price. Because first of all, if they'd already listed it last October and it hadn't even had an offer before March, it was overpriced. And that's going to be difficult. And even now, it may be less. But there is, I do believe there's going to be pent-up demand for housing at all-time record low rates. Now, every time I speak in local real estate offices, brokerage offices, whatever, everyone always tells me, yeah, but the high end's no good. Well, I just wanted to show you preliminary through 2013 at March. Notice our $1 million up sales. This is year to date in those same counties, single family, January through March. We sold more $1 million plus homes in the first 3 months of this year than any time in history, as we did in all those price ranges you can see. All right, just a quick look at commercial. Commercial going along just great, although we still haven't got back nationwide to all-time record in 2007. Houston, hey, just 4 quarters ago, we set an all-time record, folks. A lot of demand for property here. Here's one intriguing thing. If I asked you, if you had, let's just say $1 million, and you wanted to buy the average property, commercial property in the U.S. or the average property in Houston, which one would you take? I'd take Houston too. And notice these cap rates are identical, which means even though I think Houston is a growing economy, it's going to continue to outgrow the U.S., our real estate's cheap, same price as the national average. To wrap this up, we'll talk. What we're looking at is a very short and incredibly deep recession. Now, Goldman Sachs is looking out at the end of, we'll be out of that recession by the end of Q2. I'm thinking the beginning of the year, maybe Q4, somewhere in there. We entered this downturn with the most jobs in history and the best wage growth in 10 years. Record low rates going to help us come out, the country, and here. And cheap energy will help the country come out, but not here. And folks, I just want you all to think about this. We used to consume 18 million barrels of oil per day in the United States. I'll just put this in perspective because I live on airplanes, so to speak. American Airlines, a year ago today, had 237 flights every day out of DFW into the New York region. Today they have 7. Just work out how little fuel. When I used to drive the airport up to 3 times a week to catch flights and go to the speeches, I used to get about 28 miles per gallon. I'm getting 7 weeks per tank right now, just not burning fuel. It's going to take us a while to get out of this oil glut. It's going to take us a while. Manufacturing, we're going to make a lot more here. And this is where we should have an opportunity, particularly with the Houston ship ports. Short term, a lot more medical. Long term. Now, I did want to show you this thing, McDrive. I took this picture in Germany in 2005. Why? I think it's the best name for a drive-through everything. In fact, I think McDonald's blew it. Every McDonald's drive-through in the U.S. should have been named McDrive. And like I said, talk about drive. Here at Stewart, we're even doing drive-through closings. How many of y'all do that? This is amazing. You have a couple, they show up, they don't even get out of their U-Haul truck to close in their house. Y'all get this? Oh, and aren't you pleased that you live where you're a member of the Houston Association of Realtors, the most technologically advanced realtor association in the country, because you actually know this. This is one of our agents up in Minneapolis. They bought this old bank building. They had no idea what they're going to do with the drive-up windows. It's now called Closing Room Number 1. One of our agents in Texas and one of our offices in Texas. Y'all see this stuff? Different. And realtors, let me tell you what's good about this technology. This is going to expedite the change that was coming in place in the industry in the first place. Look, I've already done one paperless closing in October before this. Well, let's just look at this. Manufacturing, here's long-term stuff. We're just going to produce a lot more stuff here. And I'm pleased we're not going to make, well, the quicker we don't make pharmaceuticals and other things in China, the better off we are going to be. And I do believe that. All this is going to hasten the paperless real estate transaction process. We have remote everything, remote notaries, remote closings, remote appraisals. You did an FHA appraisal today that the appraiser didn't just a drive-by. They didn't get out of their car, drive through everything. I wouldn't own a commercial property now. As I told you earlier, I'm sitting here in 15,000 square feet floor of office space, and there's 4 of us on the floor, and yet Stewart Title is up and running globally at full capacity. We just don't need offices anymore. In fact, I think we've forever reduced the demand for offices. And just the flip, I think our industrial property demand is permanently up. Everything that you don't purchase from a walk-through storefront comes from industrial property. We're going to build a lot more stuff in the U.S. Everything from personal protection equipment, cars, the whole works, electronics, and we're going to store a lot more of that. PPE, surgical masks, respirators, toilet paper too, believe it or not. Leisure hospitality, direct hit and blast, and that, and I'm going to tell y'all, it's going to be a very difficult summer for our coastlines. Put that up front. Oil prices remain low. It benefits 99.5% of all consumers, not Houston. I tweet. For those y'all that tweet, I got an example come up, and I have a blog. Oh, and it's official. Grocery store workers now part of the superhero club. Tip your bagger next time you go out to the grocery store. They don't make anything. Look what they're doing for us, folks. Oh, and I love this one. When the crisis is over, we should declare a holiday for truck drivers. October 4th, call it the Big 10-4. I got to show you this. This is an example. I own downstairs. There's 2 units. I own 1 of the units. 4th building to the left. Gallows Point Resort, St. John. It's not why I'm telling you this. It's an investment property, and it's got a great return. But why am I telling this? Because I'm going to tell you how I purchased this property. Now, my wife and I have had property here since the 80s. We've always wanted to own one of these. And when we were there this past July, it was already occupied. They rent it by the night, by the week. Gallows Point Resort, there's 60 condos in the resort. And so I called the realtor, and I said, I want to look at this unit. He says, well, they check out Sunday morning at 10:30. You can look at it then. So we met him at 10:30 Sunday morning. Walked through, and on his iPad, y'all remember the trusty iPad. We were there 5 minutes, and I made an offer. And if you want to steal my DocuSign signature, just you got it. That's Ted's DocuSign. So made an offer. My realtor, my broker, then emailed it to the listing agent in St. John. And she had just received a call from the seller. Seller's from New Jersey, but they were doing a vacation in Italy that evening. I mean, this is Sunday morning here. And she called him back, and she said, I'm sending you an offer. He took out his iPad, did a counter, sent it to her, sent it to my guy, and I accepted it. Now, here's what I want to tell you about technology. 21 minutes start to finish. A couple from Texas negotiated a property in St. John, owned by a couple from New Jersey, who were on vacation in Italy, and 21 minutes start to finish, it was done. The only time I signed my name on this total transaction had nothing to do with the purchase. 3 weeks after the closing, I was in my attorney's office in St. John. He said, if you sign here, I'll give you a copy of your documents. How about that? Guys, I just put this up. One of our Stewart people took this in Tampa, Florida, looking out of our condo. Notice the balcony lights. We will be back. We're the best country in the world. We will overcome every adversity there is to overcome. We'll be back. It's going to be painful, not painless, but we'll triumph. Hey, great to live in Houston, Texas, but it's going to be some painful periods the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for sharing so much great information with us, Ted. We do have some questions if you have some time.
You bet.
Okay, so Suzanne said, did I understand correctly that Ted predicts home sales will be down about 35% this year?
No, that's in the second quarter.
Okay.
And so I'm saying 35 to 40 in the second quarter, and I'm guessing about 25% down for the year.
Okay, very good. A lot of people just thanking you for all this really helpful information. Latasha said, do you think commercial real estate investing may be the focus?
I do. You know, be honest with yourself. When you're looking at a 30-year treasury of around 1.2%, inflation is 1.5%, you buy a treasury, granted it's risk-free, but you just lost money. And so I think we're going to be searching for yield, and I think commercial real estate's a route. That said, I think there's some segments of commercial real estate that have some difficulties, particularly leisure and hospitality.
Okay, very good. A few more questions here. How will the massive government spending impact the economy and market?
Well, national government spending, the nice thing is the way we're doing it, we're actually just keeping some people near whole. Nobody's really getting beneficial in this thing. In other words, if you look at it, what we're doing is not inflationary whatsoever. It's just keeping people. Here's the key: keep their credit record intact so they can refinance at the lowest rates they've ever done and keep their jobs. We already know that's not working because we have 22 million. We've had 36 million people total are now unemployed. 30 million new ones that we didn't have just 2 months ago. But we don't see it inflationary. And the good news is, unlike in '08 when we had super low interest rates, our administration then didn't borrow money for 30 years. They borrowed money at 1, 2, or 5 years because rates were low on those rates. We should have been borrowing at 30-year rates, and that's good news what our administration's been doing right now. We're borrowing a lot of money, but it didn't cost us much, and we're not spending it the way it's going to be inflationary at this time.
Okay, very good. As always, a lot of people asking if this is recorded. Yes, it is. You can rewatch it on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel after this. Sita asked, do you expect foreclosures to rise? If so, by how much?
Do expect some foreclosures to go up. I'm going to tell you this. We had overbuilt our market. You may disagree with me, but you look at those numbers. Like I told you, in Houston, we have 1.06 new jobs per new dwelling unit. In Miami, we have 3 new jobs per new dwelling unit. I don't expect rents to go down in Miami, and I don't expect prices to go down in Miami, but we were already overbuilt here. Gosh, yeah.
Okay. I know you have some opinions about chicken.
That's true. I don't eat chicken.
Melinda asked, what have you heard about the food shortage, beef and chicken being killed, packing plants are closing down? Any thoughts on that and its impact?
Well, I was amazed we had toilet paper shortage. We actually had plenty of toilet paper if people hadn't socked away 2 months' supply of their personal closets. I'm pretty much guessing we have the same way. I do notice the president has done that War Orders Act where to keep our packing plants open. I salute those workers and those industries that are taking some of the risks. That's why I say pay your sacker at the grocery store, folks, because they sees all of us. And yeah, we're going to have some shortages, but on the other hand, we'll get through this one. Look, there's toilet paper available in the stores now. You may have a week that you may not get your filet mignon or your boneless skinless chicken breast, but I think we'll get through this one. I'm not too worried about it in the long run.
Yeah, if that's your worry, then you're doing well.
That's right.
So actually, Shad Bogany asked, do you think COVID-19 will affect the 2020 census and the count?
Oh, I hope it doesn't. Shad's working with the Census Bureau on this. Shad, thank you for your work doing that. We cannot afford to undercount the number of people in any place, particularly Houston, Texas, where we live, for federal money and our share of grants and everything else like that. Hope we don't do that. We still have a while to go on this one. Good news, but that's a neat thing. Everyone can contact Shad to see whatever they can do to help make sure that. I'm proud of myself. I completed my census the first day it came in, and I urge everyone else to do the same.
Yeah, very good. A lot of questions about office spaces and commercial real estate industry. Your thoughts on office spaces and also your thoughts on co-working spaces. Is all of that still going to be viable in a post-COVID environment?
Some of it's going to be viable, but remember, depending on who you listen to, before all this started, we were anywhere from 22 to 26% vacant on our office space in Houston, Texas. We just have too much. And now we've proven we don't even need all the space that we had. I proved to everyone you don't need an office to get your job done. Y'all get this? Just the opposite of industrial, I think there's increasing demand for industrial. I think we're going to reinvent office space, but it's going to be real value added space instead of cubicles for individual workers, because if you have a cubicle, they can do it any place. They don't need to be even in the cubicle. So I think we're going to reinvent that. Those personal workspaces have done that somewhat. It'll be intriguing how else that falls out too.
Okay. There's a few questions about new construction and new builds. Builders are slowing down on new builds. Will that create a shortage, and for how long?
You know, it's kind of amazing this past week. One of the tweets I looked at was the massive pop in demand for new, clean, vacant housing construction. And a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm willing to pay a premium move there. Now, people have paid premiums for new properties forever, but to them, it's worth it, and it's particularly more valuable today. What I think the builders have an opportunity right now is perhaps purchase and lock up some land for the next 4, 5, or 6 years at rates that wouldn't have been otherwise more affordable than they are today. So I think there's a good way that they can bank some land acquisitions to do that. I'm going to tell you, we were overbuilt into this, and this is just going to slow that down a little bit. I do believe that we're going to be down in home sales this year. I do believe, like Fannie, that we're going to make them up in 2021, but I think we're going to be deeper, a little less sales this year. Like I told you, Fannie Mae is about 15% off. My competitor order counts, orders down an average of 45% in the first 3 weeks of April, says that it's going to be a slow second part of the third quarter when our top sales typically hit.
Okay. There's a lot of questions about pricing that I'll get into in just a second, but one more quick question about being overbuilt. Someone asked, do you think single family homes are overbuilt?
Well, all right. So overbuilding is a function of total number of dwelling units. Let's talk about apartments. The only kind of apartment we've built in 20 years in Houston, Texas are Class A apartments. And there's a reason for that. Our land costs have been so high that the only way you could afford to buy land close in was to pay a lot for it. And if you pay a lot for land, you have to build a Class A apartment. So we had overbuilt our Class A apartment. When the last hurricane came through, Harvey, thank heavens we had 70,000 vacant brand new Class A apartments never been lived in. Because we lost 200,000 homes, damaged, whatever, temporarily lost. And we had lost 200,000, but we had 70,000 units there to move in. We've overbuilt, guys. And that's why our rents hadn't been going up at all to speak of, and why our home values hadn't been going up, and why a lot of people who had listings since prior October until March of this year couldn't sell them because it wasn't priced properly. Again, I'm not that realtor that knows that market, that neighborhood like the back of their hand. You do, and you know what is priced right and what is not, and I think that's where your value add comes into play.
To that point, because there were some questions about pricing, but Jay just asked, do you think certain price points in the residential markets will be affected more than others? If so, which ones?
Well, the question is, now you think about this. Remember, we talked about 76,000 total jobs being in the oil and gas business in Houston in the MSA. Now, there's a lot of jobs that are oil and gas related that aren't classified like that. The plant that makes the drill step, they're not classified as oil and gas or classified as manufacturing. But since their demand goes away when drilling activity goes away, those people get impacted. So, our oil and gas community and those related businesses are among our higher paid jobs here. So you would say it's going to probably impact our higher paid markets more so.
Greg asked, how do you feel if they're predicting a stronger hurricane season, how do you think that will impact us if we do end up having a strong hurricane season this year as well?
Well, we'll be stocked up on toilet paper, won't we? Yeah, how can you think about that one? Guys, I can remember back in the 60s when we had hurricane seasons as severe, if not more severe than we've seen recently. I think that's one of the hazards and the risks of living in a beautiful place like this on the coast, understanding you are going to have those hurricanes. Most people forget that even like go back up to New York and New England and that region, between 1959 and the 60s, in that period, they had hurricane year after year after year. And now what happens is, it's never happened before. I think we need to look a little more in history to see what happens. Always be prepared, listen to weather forecasters, and realtors, you have an obligation and an opportunity. How about knowing the market area that's never flooded? I live in one of those neighborhoods that's never flooded. That makes a difference. And so from your business perspective, you can do a lot of value add to your buyers and sellers.
Okay. I see we have 2 more minutes. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. Joe said 3 million is being printed by the government. How will that affect inflation?
3 billion or million?
I'm sorry, trillion is what he
Trillion,
said.
yeah. Right now, it's not inflationary until you spend it. It becomes inflationary when you have more money than the goods out there, so you bid up the price. We don't have that right now, and that's good news that we don't have that. So right now, I'm going to tell you I don't see it as being inflationary. On the other hand, if you make a commodity where people will pay a lot more for it than it's worth, then you can become inflationary. Right now, we don't have that. I'm going to, again, take off my hat, and I'm going to salute both Chairman Powell of the Federal Reserve and Mnuchin. These business people, the economy's like a fish tank, an aquarium. Fish will live as long as they have enough water. If you get a leak in that fish tank, the first thing you have to do is make sure to keep enough water in that tank to keep those fish alive. And that's the first response. The next thing is to fill it. We haven't overfilled it. We haven't even filled it back up the top yet. And when you fill it past over the top, that's when our inflation happens. We haven't done that, and that's good news.
All right, last question here. And of course, if you didn't get your question answered, Ted did say that you can tweet at him. I'm sure he'll answer your questions too after this. But one more question seems like a good one to end on here is your advice for realtors, but specifically new realtors in the next 3 to 4 quarters.
Oh, gosh. I think the neatest thing about a realtor is their local market information. I consider myself a pretty good real estate expert, but I'll tell you, I use realtors when I buy and sell real estate. Why? And here's what I've always said as an appraiser. The best person that knows more about value than anyone is that real estate agent, because they see the motives of the buyers and sellers. You know what I don't know right now. You know the motives of buyers going in. In fact, the latest NAR survey says buyers expect a price reduction. The same survey says sellers aren't going to cut their prices. Y'all know if they need to cut their prices to sell it. And therein lies the value of the realtor, because you see all those motives and bits of information in the marketplace that other people do not see. I think become that local market expert, embrace technology. Imagine, thank heavens, I'm going to say this up front, thank heavens for Bob Hill and past elected leadership, the Houston Association of Realtors. Can you imagine doing this if we hadn't been the first realtor group in the country to go to a consumer-facing web portal? Think about all this, guys. Hey, we're in the catbird seat right now as far as technology goes in this thing. I salute the past leadership and Bob Hill and y'all's crew on this one.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ted. This has been wonderful. A lot of our members thanking you for such great information. We always like hearing your insight. So thank you again for doing this for us today.
And I will get this slide deck to you too. Some people may not want to listen to the review, but they may want the slide deck, and I'll get it to you shortly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ted. And people were asking for that too, so that's great. Again, this was recorded, so once we finish up here, you'll be able to watch the playback on Facebook, and in just a little while, you'll be able to watch the playback on YouTube as well. So thank you again, Ted. We really appreciate it. We hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.